For the past decade, Michael has been the first and current North American delegate for the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation, the world's largest worker cooperative. Michael also led the formation of the Mondragon United Steelworker Union Partnership Agreement that we've all read about and heard about and are very excited about. Michael led the development and location of the Spanish wind turbine manufacturing company Gamesa in Pennsylvania, and since then the company has invested $220 million in 2 factories and created more than 900 good and green jobs. Gamesa has achieved several firsts, including a progressive labor agreement with the United Steelworkers Union. He is part of a team seeking to further develop the Gamesa model in Ohio. Michael served as a naval officer in active duty from 1976 to 1983 and won the U.S. Naval Forces European Leadership Award in 1981. Michael, thank you for your service. From 1988 to 1984, Michael was Senior Vice President for Corporate Business Development at SAIC, an employee-owned company. And Michael, welcome to the conference.
Thank you, Jim. I should be introducing you, not the reverse. I'm the farthest thing from a Kami Pinko singing Kumbaya you're ever going to meet. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to be here. It's an honor to be here with all of the employee owners of your various companies, and for those of you supporting the employee ownership movement, and for those of you wanting to take this to the next level. I personally think there is no more American, bipartisan, straight down the middle of Main Street American value than employee ownership. I mean, we're a country founded by immigrants. We're a middle-class country. We believe in pragmatic values. We all came here wanting to own land, our forefathers. Some of us came here under difficult circumstances, but the quest for ownership, from home ownership to household ownership, and now to workplace ownership, has been a constantly recurring American value. And with the technology that we all have strapped to our belts and bulging out of our pockets, we're now tethered 24/7. And unless we learn how to get that workplace ownership under control thing going, we're going to be slaves to our own progress. So there's nothing like workplace ownership. And what I want to talk to you about today are a number of models that I've been involved in, that I've experienced personally, and that I think have relevance. I don't think I have anything to teach anybody here. I'm sure, I know I could learn a great deal from all of you about your businesses, and I certainly hope to do so today while I'm with you. But what I'd like to do is come up with some templates that have worked historically for people both in the United States and in Spain. So I have a pretty decent speech, they tell me here, but I've learned a long time ago that the best thing is to speak from inside my head and my heart. So let me try to get you back to 1935. Imagine you're in a mountainous region that has made things historically. You've made the armor for Europe, the swords, the shields, anything metal, anything that comes out of the ground, anything that's metal bending, you've made it. You've competed with the Germans to the north, the Italians to the south. You're pretty good at what you do. You speak a language no one can understand, has no reference to any other language known in the world. Some people say you look a little different. Some people say your heads are a little bit bigger. You definitely have a different kind of blood type. And there's only 2.2 million of you. And you're on the wrong side of everything. You're on the wrong side of the Spanish Civil War, which left over 1 million people dead in that country. You opted to defend the existing legitimate government and oppose the dictator. You got crushed. Then Hitler and Mussolini used your flagship town, Guernica, and they decided to strafe you without any warning to practice the weaponry they would then later deploy in World War II. And Pablo Picasso has an amazing picture of that he painted, if you would ever see that in a museum, and I'm sure most of you have. It's called Guernica. Then, after the devastation of World War II, you have nothing. Your towns are in rubbles. Your valleys are quiet. Your people are unemployed. There's no food. There's no safety net. There's no social anything. There is just total devastation. And into that abyss comes a simple village priest, not a Jesuit, not anything with an advanced name. And he wasn't really supposed to be the real priest that showed up. He was a substitute because the guy they nominated chickened out. And in shows this priest, and he looks around. His name is very hard to pronounce. It's taken me 11 years to learn how to do it. I'm going to say it once, and then we're going to declare victory. Father Arithmendiareta. So our father showed up, and he looked around, and he said, well, unless we collaborate, we're toast. We have to collaborate. And of course people said, yeah, great, what's that mean? So he opened up a little school, and he preached collaboration for over a decade, and he finally graduated 5 engineers from that little school, and they formed a little co-op that made kerosene stoves. And the priest took the overnight train to Madrid and went to Franco's government, Madrid being the capital of Spain, and said, oh, I've got this cooperative here, and I'd like to have them qualify for Social Security benefits. And Franco's government said, yeah, right. It's neither mineral, animal, or vegetable. What's a cooperative? The answer is no, stamp. So the priest goes back to the Basque region, another train, and he says, well, fine, I'll just create my own mutual cooperative that will take care of this. It's called Lagon Oro, and it's now one of the top 26 mutuals in Europe, completely profitable, no scandal, does the job for the 100,000 people plus that are involved in Mondragon today. Then the priest tried to get a loan. He went to the banks. The same answer. Mineral, vegetable, animal. No, it's not. So, no, stamp. So he created his own bank. It's called Caja Laboral. They have over 695 branches throughout Spain. They have totally escaped the subprime construction debacle that has affected Western economies. The U.S. National Cooperative Bank that President Kennedy helped to found in Washington, D.C., headquartered there, is founded on Caja Laboral. It's a huge success, and it is the people's bank. And then that little school that the priest created became a university, Mondragon University. 6,000 students today, owned and run by the students, their parents, their teachers, and the cooperatives that hire the students. And for those students at Mondragon University who need a part-time job because they need to support their studies, there's a worker cooperative called AliCoop for them where they can work part-time as members of a co-op creating educational products. And today Mondragon has evolved into something that is breathtaking, and I always refer to my notes because every time I talk about this, someone sends me an email saying, Michael, you didn't check the latest statistics. So now we have over 100,000 people. I would say 85,000 in Spain, 14,000 around the world, sharing a single business idea in over 255 cooperatives. Last year we had annual sales of $24 billion. Again, with our own corporate university, our corporate bank, our corporate Social Security mutual. We're ranked as the top 10 Basque business, the 10th largest in Spain, and the world's largest industrial co-op. We're in more than 70 countries. We have 75 production plants. We have 9 corporate offices. We have 11 corporate delegations. I'm the North American delegate of the North American delegation. We have 12 proprietary R&D centers, and we have 705 patents. But what we mostly have are 10 principles, because the principles are why we're successful. And I'm going to go over these 10 principles because I believe that they are universally applicable, and I believe that they separate those who talk the talk and those who walk the talk. And they are, number 1, education. The priest started with a school. Unless you provide education, you can't get out of the starting gate. The second, and I'm going to say the second one and the third one together because to me they encapsulate what's good about this model and what's wrong about the society that we find ourselves here, living here in the United States. It's called the sovereignty of labor and the instrumental but subordinate nature of capital. I'm going to say that again. The sovereignty of labor and the instrumental but subordinate nature of capital. This is the man Sabbath formula. Folks, you know, is the Sabbath made for man or is man made for the Sabbath? Capital is made for the sovereignty of labor. The sovereignty of labor is not made for capital. Democratic organization, open admission, participation in management. In Mondragon, it's one worker, one vote. I write a blog called One Worker, One Vote. Wage solidarity. There's 5 to 6 levels between the lowest paid who just came in and the highest paid who's running the show. 5 to 6 levels. Now, contrast that with the United States, where we have 400 to 1 CEOs to workers. We have ratios that nobody can justify, even in their dreams. Intercooperation between cooperatives, and I'm going to talk to you about why that is so important, and why all of you employee owners that are sitting here, employee-owned companies, why that's the next level. Social transformation and the universal nature of the corporate experience, the cooperative experience. So let's talk, so that's the first model. So let's talk about the race to the bottom, which is where we find ourselves now in the United States. In this country, the top 1% of all Americans own 50% of the nation's wealth. Those of you like me come from immigrant families. We were born thinking and believing and taught that we could do whatever we were good enough to do, fortunate enough to do, trained hard to do, worked hard to do. It was this idea that the next generation could always go to the next level, that anything in this country is possible. The top 1% that own 50% of our country's wealth can now be boiled down to 400 individuals. This is a polemic statement that has been checked out by every single think tank on all sides of all aisles and found to be absolutely true. So the top 1%, those 400 individuals, own more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans combined. So the bottom 60% of our country only control 20% of our nation's income. The bottom 80%, so 250 million people, own 13% of the wealth, while the top 20% owns 87% of the wealth. I don't know about you, but that's how oligarchies are formed. That's how revolutions are formed, but that's not how a middle class is formed. By 2030, according to all demographic trends, we will be a majority-minority country, or as some pundit put it, all minority all of the time. We have to get ready for the new America. Whenever we try to start manufacturing businesses, the first question I get asked is, how are we going to compete with the Chinese who have 10% of our labor costs? How many of you have confronted the hard decisions about outsourcing, about being outsourced? I'm sure in Ohio, the list is long, long and scars on a lot of people's backs. There's no way we want to compete on a wage race to the bottom. Why should we be in business to see how little we can pay our own people? We should be focusing on the race to the top. And the race to the top begins with the highest percentage of distributed equity and the empowerment of workers. Today, we're in a fiscal deficit constriction phase where U.S. cities and local governments are going to lose $3 billion in funds for housing, communities, redevelopment projects, public transportation, police and fire departments. These are basic services. This is not good for the least fortunate among us. Manufacturing in the United States, which generates about $1.6 trillion, or 12% of GDP, and accounts for 3/4 of the nation's R&D, 3/4, 75%.